kind of a time and era in which, I mean, maybe I hadn't seen any, I mean, I don't know anything about that period, but at least some traces were there, you know. And as I said, a lot of things in the feminine feudal world hadn't changed, or were changing. At least I had seen them in my, early memories. You know? So for me, it was just like picking up those moments from the past and giving it light and shade and color, and texture. So that way, it was like an artistic exploration of that time, the spirit, and that persona of that person.
Okay. So it was basically, what was your inspiration, Lucknow or the dance tradition?
I think, see, as I told you earlier, my inspiration is always human helplessness.
Okay.
And it was the helplessness of this girl,
Okay.
And there was a lot of poetry. I mean, helplessness has to be expressed in its full graph, It has, you must know where that situation is coming from, So
Now, the last scene where she just wipes the mirror, I've always wanted to ask you, what, in your opinion, was that?
See, that happened at the spur of the moment. It was not written in the script, it was not written in the book. It was just, when I came there were many ways of ending the film, So at that moment, I realized that this could be a very nice symbolic, graphic way of, and even a poetic and a musical way of ending this film, because it could mean she's removing the dust of the past and facing the world anew, coming to terms with the reality.
Okay, fine. Any anecdotes that you would remember? Which
there are lots of anecdotes. I can.
So if you could write that, give me a couple.
Yeah. I mean, there was.
But I can't.
Even like my son Shad,
sorry.
he was acting in the film.
Okay.
So he used to,
He was
shooting.
the little boy.
He was a little boy, yeah.
Yeah, you were saying about Shad?
He was acting in the film, and he was very impatient. He was just ripping apart some antique tapestry I had put, So I fired him. So he got very upset, and he stood in a corner. And somebody asked him, Shad, what's happened to you? He says, मैं चला जाता वरना मैं continuity में फंस गया हूँ वरना मैं चला जाता. He was very small. He was 8-9 years old.
Okay, he was the one with the young Umrao playing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like working with Bansi Chandragupta?
Bansi, that was a very detailed person. It was, I think, a great pleasure to work with him, because he would go into details. He had worked with Ray also. So he was a very, I liked his whole taste and his way of exploring cultures and going into details and things like that. I think he brought he was a great experience to work with. Yeah.
Now the remaining questions of this I'll email you, okay? Because I have to wind this up for you. So I just want to know, this Janissar, is this a sequel? You had planned a sequel sometime.
Well, this is not a sequel. At the same time, it's a film about, again, Lucknow. It's Lucknow 20 years after that. It's Lucknow of a lot of anguish that it went through in these 20 years. In terms of its treatment to culture, the subjugation of society by colonial rule, and the whole divide and rule kind of policy. So it's really, in a way, a next step in terms of what happened to Lucknow. So for me, my muse for many films has been Awadh and Lucknow, and that's where I get all my energy and inspiration from.
And Raqs was the
Raqs was being
dance
called.
rhythm.
Raqs,
but what is Janissar?
Janissar is somebody who sacrifices his life for, here in this case, the country.
Okay. So it's about this revolutionary dancer.
It's about the revolutionary dancer and the whole revolutionary atmosphere that existed post 1857. I mean, they crushed the mutiny, the 1857 First War of Independence, but they couldn't crush the spirit,
Okay.
That spirit lingered on and it found new ways of expression.
Of expression. Of which dance was probably
Dance,
the one you're
poetry,
using,
yeah,
right?
dance and poetry both. You know?
both. Okay. Here, which are the poets whose poetry you've used?
Well, that's a very interesting question because I have really taken inspiration from two people. One is Rahi Masum Raza, who's written a very exhaustive book on 1857. He's one of the first poets to dwell on 1857 in such great detail. He's taken folklore and his own imagination to another level in terms of that period and that whole ethos. And the other anguish I've expressed is the anguish of Wajid Ali Shah. Wajid Ali Shah was the last ruler of Awadh who was exiled and sent to Mathia Burj by the British.
Okay.
So I've used his poetry.
Oh.
And there's a kind of a
His poetry.
his poetry.
Oh, okay, fine. And when is this releasing?
I think mid-February.